Using the word gay as an insult was extremely prevalent years ago when I was growing up. Mind you, I grew up in an all boys Catholic private school in the Philippines, and this probably had an effect on how and why this was used. So, in this video, I'm going to explain why calling someone gay is an insult. It's interesting because the first top reasons don't really have anything to do with the sexual orientation of the person itself. It might have a small effect and reason why people would use it, but not really. So let's begin. The first reason is it creates an us versus them dynamic. It creates some kind of boundary between you, the person saying it, and the person being insulted. First of all, there's a big push of being a masculine person, especially if you're growing up. This time of adolescence is very confusing. A lot of mixed messages are brought on upon you as a child, and you don't really know what's going on. So, a quick fire way to be better than someone else is to berate them, to judge them, and insult them. People really just want to feel better about themselves. So there's really two ways to feel better about yourself. One, the first one, and probably the more healthy one, is to improve yourself. As a child, you're always focusing on grades, school, work, all that stuff, getting an A plus, maybe being more fit in the classroom or in the PE room. So you want to be better. You want to be better than your previous self or other people. So that's one way to do it. Elevate yourself, be better, be stronger, be smarter, be more sociable. So yes, you can create that gap between your past self or probably other people, how other people see you and how other people are perceived as well. Let's say this gap is a 1. The second, and probably not as effective way of being better than other people, is as opposed to just being better than someone else, you could also, which is probably easier, berate other people, judge other people. And by judging other people, you bring them down to a different level. So let's say you bring them down to a different level. Sure, that's good. You mock them, berate them, make them feel isolated, make them feel sad. And in that beration and in that judgment, there's still that same gap of 1. And that's the very first thing, to create this kind of aggrandizement, betterment than other people, even though it's done through means that are not that healthy. That's the very first one, to create an us versus them. Through my judgment and through my insults, I am better than you. You are lower than me. Therefore, I am more superior to you. The second reason is really just insecurity. A lot of kids growing up grow up insecure. The future is uncertain. The life ahead is scary. I am not sure what I feel about myself, how I don't have that much accomplishments. I don't have that much things to be proud of. So in a person's insecurity, it might be easier to just judge other people because there's something that they don't like about themselves, that they feel about themselves. And in that judgment and in that discomfort of that judgment, that's easier for them to project that thing that they don't like about themselves to other people that they feel that they remind of that something that they don't like about themselves. And in doing so, because they're able to project that insecurity that to other people, something of which that reminds them of something that they don't like about themselves, the judgment is easier to portray because at least it's not something to do with me, it's something to do with someone else. And in a weird way, this actually prevents that person from doing the actual work that needs to be done for that person to grow. it's always about taking the easier path. So instead of looking internally and determining these characteristics I do not like about myself, I do not like that I'm like this, I don't like about like this. Instead of doing that and creating that awareness about yourself and being more in tune with how you're feeling and certain triggers that you're not happy with, people in general just want to use all that negative emotion, block that away very subconsciously. It is not really done very intentionally. Block that away, put that onus and responsibility on someone else, and instead of working towards the goals that they need to be done, that needs to be worked on, that needs some attention and love and care, it's projected on someone else. And because it's on someone else, the easier way to do it by kind of, it's like a false sense of, hey, I'm actually doing something towards my own insecurities by calling them out, by being more acknowledged of the flaws and insecurities. That's like a fake work that's done. But in reality, nothing's really being done because it's someone else. You're just calling out someone else. That's not really helping anyone, really. It's more like a short-term band-aid solution of, hey, sure, it's not on me. At least it's not on me. I'm denying my own flaws and rough around the edges. It's someone else's problem. And in a sense, in a weird sense, it tricks the mind like, hey, I'm doing something else, but you're actually doing it for someone else. And it's interesting because the last point, and like I said, I grew up in the Philippines, homophobia, even back then, I'm sure now too, especially since it's a Catholic country, there's a big disdain and push from Catholicism that's against it. It's the third reason, but not really the biggest reason, because the biggest reasons were the last two that I developed or I've explained. The first of being a boundary between us versus them, and in the elevation of my own judgments and insecurities, I am different than other people, and therefore I am better than other people. And the second is the insecurity between the relationship of the self between you and that other person. And the third, the final, is the homophobia, which is a little bit there, but not, it just kind of puts along and pushes the whole insult as kind of like a cherry on top. And to wrap this up, the final thing is there's a big chance, or there's a big push between masculinity in most environments, especially when you're competing at such a young age. Masculinity for me is overcoming, being competitive, being assertive, being aggressive, achieving what you want, goals. And what's lacking is the femininity. There's always that imbalance that's not as pushed as much. And I think especially in such a insecure environment as school, you're growing up, femininity is not as pushed as hard. It's mostly about, for me, that term is relaxation, acceptance, nurturing, love, and being okay as you are. And those two things are a complete different ends of the spectrum. One is about achieving more, not being enough, competition, overcoming challenges. The second is more femininity, is more, it's okay as who you are. It's okay that you're not doing this. It's fine. You're perfect the way you are. And these are always at odds. And that's what's usually being used. Anything that counters being any way at all, being masculine, is immediately, just like that, immediately seen as effeminate, or a more toxic way to put it is gay, right? So in a sense, a lot of these are all combined with the insecurity of growing up. Being anything but masculine is automatically consumed or portrayed and perceived as effeminate. And just kids being kids, really. Kids wanting to be part of a tribe, all of that fuels that reliance and that desire to call someone, something, something that you don't want to be called. Therefore, the elevation of yourself is much more compared to other people just because you're not that person. So, next time, usually when you have some kind of judgment against anyone, and typically judgments are seen as something negative, something that you don't like about yourself, probably, I could almost say this certainly, that it's not has anything to do with the other person, the other situation, the other thing that's going on. It's mostly something to do with you that you deem something unworthy. And I invite you to take a look at that, because the judgments are never really about anything outside of yourself. It's more of the internal that reminds you of something that you don't like about yourself. And there's some beliefs, probably way back, that we have not even tried to see or are even remotely aware of, that's somehow running that system. And there you go. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from this, and I will see you next time.